What's up, y'all? I taped this video live, so what you're about to watch is the replay. If you want to join Flash Chat Live, that happens every Tuesday after a new episode of The Flash. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on Twitter and also on Facebook Live. I'll put the links below. Like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. And enjoy. Question number one. Is it just me, or does Team Flash not seem right without Vibe? I know we have Cisco, but still. Okay, now I'm going to type in my answer, but also Team Flash just doesn't feel the same without Vibe because he honestly feels like half a person. And I know that, it might sound crazy or whatever, but that's the way he feels to me. Like he's not whole. Like he's not the person that, he was. And they spent so much time selling us Vibe. That's the thing. They spent so much time, giving us the idea that Cisco had these powers, and just like when Caitlin got her powers and everybody was secretive about them, and then they had to go through this whole arc where they had to accept themselves, and then not only did they accept themselves, but they became a hero, and then now all of a sudden, that's all just gone, and he's like back to regular Cisco again. Something about that just feels very empty to me. I don't know why, but it really, really does. So let me type that. Probably not going to say all that on Twitter, but that's why I'm doing it live. Selling us on Vibe and his powers, and Cisco had to adjust. And now all of a sudden, all that's gone. Again, just does not feel like a whole person, doesn't even feel like the same character. You understand what I mean by that? Because we got used to that other character, and now just all gone. Yeah, that's right. Okay, Polly says, well, my opinion. It's great to see Cisco actually science again, but I don't see any reason why he couldn't do that and be Vibe. It seems one or the other with this show, which is true. Okay, which is what I'm going to tell her right now. He could 100% absolutely do both. How could he not? And I'm trying to understand what motivated the decision. Was it because Camilla's in his life, or was it because, he didn't want to put her in danger? Because if you think about it, not having his powers probably puts her in more danger. Because if she's going to hang around with him in Team Flash, then whatever Team Flash is going through, Cisco's still a part of that, except he's a part of that now without powers. So how was that helping Camilla if that was his motivation? It's very confusing. Okay, now Fabiola says, actually, the thing is that for the first time in a while, Cisco was back in his usual mood of season one, the best part of Team Flash. The scene with Barry, Caitlin, and Cisco seemed just right. However, Vibe will be back, I think. Well, don't agree that it felt totally right, but I sincerely hope Vibe comes back. That's for sure. Because once again, I think that Cisco and Caitlin are both the heart of Team Flash. I think they're different sides of that heart. You know what I mean? Because Caitlin is more the heart, care about the well-being of the team side, which makes sense being a medical doctor. But Cisco is the geeky side. He's the fanboy side. He's the super, super creative tech side. And he's how we would act. That's why we've always loved him. If we were a part of Team Flash, we would geek out and fanboy out and name all the characters just like Cisco does. So, it kind of feels like he's been demoted, to be honest. That's what it feels like, that maybe he's been reduced in rank. And I'm like, out of all the characters that deserve that, Cisco does not deserve that. Not even a little bit. Okay, reading somebody's profile in text speak. Couldn't read it all, but anyway. So yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So I want to see Cisco, I want to see Vibe and Cisco become the same person again. And I want to see them be whole again. And I want to see them, because he didn't, how can I say it? He didn't make me feel like he was happy. He made me feel like, obviously it's an adjustment again, but he didn't seem like he had the same energy, the same spark. I think that, if you've had superpowers and you lose them, it has to be like losing a limb, you know? All right. Question 2. Time paradoxes give us all headaches, but if Barry and Iris have Nora again, what do you think they'll do differently this time? Of course, my phone rings while I'm doing flash chat. And yeah, okay, I'm talking to Fabiola. Fabiola says it's confirmed that Iris won't be pregnant this season. However, I don't think they'll do differently anyway. Last season didn't make sense at all, though. And that is very, very true because Nora should have never stayed in the present. I mean, we went through that over and over again, but she should have never stayed in the present. And if anybody knows that, it's Barry. Her father should have known as soon as she revealed herself. Barry should have been like, okay, you out. Go back home. We're not going to give you a chance to mess up anything, create a paradox or whatever. And Barry went through all of his training and all of his instincts and all of the mistakes that he had already made. That doesn't make any sense. And who knew that best? Barry. That's right. Barry knew that there was no way she should have stayed. Okay, all right. Okay. Chris Colfer fan says he's not sure if Barry and Iris will do anything different, but they're looking forward to finding out. So, I kind of feel like, Nora's going to come back and maybe they're going to do her whole heart. They're going to do her whole arc, that's hard to say, all over again. And I hope not, because last season was nonsensical. It was basically Barry's arc with Nora in the lead, and then they ended up getting rid of her. So do we really have to go through that again? I don't think we should have to go through that again. All right, Polly says, on answer 2, maybe Iris will always be there for her, but also learn to let go a little. I'm sure fear of losing her daughter like she did her husband was what that whole live situation was between them last year. Okay, possibly. Or Iris could overcompensate. Okay, she could overreact and try and dampen Nora's powers again. She might even have more of a reason this time since she knows what can happen. Try and dampen Nora's powers again since she now knows. I want you to try to type now knows really fast. Watch what happens. Now knows what could happen. I personally think Iris is going to overreact. I think that the Iris that we met that used the chip to dampen Nora's powers and try to let her know, or tried not to, ever let her know that she had speed powers and not let her get involved in the mix at all. I think that Iris is going to do that again. Now I think she has more reason to do that because now she'll remember the heartbreak she went through watching Nora disintegrate in her hands. And so I think Iris has even a greater motivation now to be even more controlling, more afraid, and more determined to not let Nora find out that she's a speedster. That's what I think. And I'm going to say that to Polly. Iris has even more reason now to not let Nora know that she's a speedster. Okay. All right. All this other stuff's coming on my timeline, like that time I was really wrong, all these other hashtags. All right, question number 3. Okay. I sure hope they're not tuning up to get Caitlin involved with the main villain of the season again, because that funeral sure looked like a moment. Do we want the lovely Katie Kate to have a love interest this season? So how do you feel about that? Because they really did have a moment at the funeral, but do you want Caitlin to have that love interest? Do you want Killer Frost to have a love interest? Because it seems like this episode was about Killer Frost getting more of a life. I'm going to talk about that later because I'm a little bit confused on that. But anyway, there won't be a thing. Okay. Okay. I'm like, wait. Now, Fabio is telling me that Julian is back. I did not know that. Julian is back? Please, no Julian. If there was ever a character that the vast majority of us couldn't stand, it was Julian. Didn't even understand why he was there. He didn't have chemistry with anybody on the show, not just Caitlin. And every time he tried to get hot and heavy with her or whatever, everybody was like rolling their eyes. You could feel people collectively rolling their eyes while the scene was going on. Everybody was like, really, dude, really? No. She's not into you. There's no way she'd be into you. Why? How? Based on what? Okay. So, now Ashley's answering question two. She says, honestly, if I were them, I wouldn't name her Nora to change things, and because I wouldn't be able to, after everything that happened and what that name associates with now. But considering Barry will make it out of crisis this time around, that'll be different too. Those are all excellent points. All excellent points. They will have post-traumatic stress syndrome or stress disorder over Nora for the rest of their lives. So why would they even set themselves up to do a repeat? Set themselves up to do a repeat, okay? If you're Barry and Iris and you know what's going to happen, let's say you do have your first child as a little girl, would you name her Nora? Would you voluntarily put yourself through all that again? See, again, that doesn't make any sense. But one of the unfortunate characteristics of Barry on this show is that it's like he doesn't learn from season to season, which just has everybody scratching their head. Okay? It's like he doesn't learn. If you're going to make mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes, that's a part of life. That's actually a part of growing as a hero. One of my favorite arcs of Batman is when he realizes the differences between his Robins. He talks about that in Hush. If you haven't read Batman Hush, you need to read it. He talks about who Grayson is. Grayson was born to be in the center ring. He was born to be center stage. He comes from a family of circus performers. And no matter how angry or whatever Grayson gets, he always loves to be out there. When they first introduced him as Robin, they called him that laughing daredevil. Okay? Jason is different. Okay? Jason was angry to be angry. Jason was kind of angry at the world. And Bruce thought he could take that anger and shape it and form it, but he couldn't. Then there's Damien. I know I skipped over Tim Drake. Tim's a whole nother conversation. But the point I'm trying to make is that, even Bruce learned from his Robins the kinds of things, the kinds of projections, the kind of stuff he was doing wrong by taking in a child or a teenager into his self-styled war on crime. Barry on The Flash makes the same mistakes every year. So maybe they would name her Nora again, but why? Why? Okay. Okay, Team Forward says no because she doesn't need a love interest to be relevant, and they already said nothing will happen between her and Ramsey. Okay, I agree completely that Caitlin is already relevant, okay, in her own right. I will remind everyone that Caitlin has saved the life of literally everybody on Team Flash. So she doesn't have to prove her worth as far as I'm concerned. So, all right. Now, okay, now Small Screen Girl is answering question number one and has a very interesting answer. She says, it feels very wrong talking about Vi being gone from Cisco. It feels very wrong, especially since he was one of the only people of color on the show with powers. It's very interesting. If anyone should be cured, it's Caitlin. Killer Frost has been whacked since the beginning, and she tried to kill Barry, Cisco, and Iris. That is true, but I still love Caitlin and Killer Frost. So there's my bias. Bias showing. I still love her as a character. I love Danielle, I love Caitlin, and I love Killer Frost. I think they add so much to the show. But I am going to tell Small Screen Girl that's very interesting. I never thought about that, thought about it that way. If anything happens with Caitlin, however, I think they should be split. So in other words, Caitlin exists separate from Killer Frost. Not Killer Frost goes away, but Killer Frost is still there, but she's her own separate person with her own separate body, no longer connected to Caitlin. Now, I'm not even saying that that should be permanent, but I'm saying that would be an incredible storyline if they did it. Watching Killer Frost trying to navigate the world, and the question is, without the anchor of Caitlin, would Killer Frost go evil again? That would be fun to see. That would be worth watching. Okay. Okay, Ashley says on question number 3, does Caitlin need a new love interest? She says no. LOL, that girl does not need a new love interest right now, especially with now Frost trying to figure out how to have a life. Adding a romance for either of them doesn't feel right. Okay, my response to that is, who would be a love interest for Killer Frost? Because, obviously, the love of her life was a Savitar. Evil Barry, Time Remnant Barry, Savitar, however you want to cut that. That was obviously the love of her life, and she obviously was into him, and she obviously, remember, they lived a future where they had a crime spree, where they were the future superpowered Bonnie and Clyde. I still say it's a mistake that we didn't see that crime spree. I wanted to see that on the show. I still don't get why they didn't show us that. But remember, they had a whole future where they spent years. That thing was, I forgot how long it was, but it wasn't months. It was like years. They were out there as Bonnie and Clyde. So you'll never convince me that Killer Frost wasn't in love with Evil Barry / Savitar. But all that's gone now. So who would be a love interest for Killer Frost? Not Caitlin, but Killer Frost. Who could she, hook up with? He's in Vancouver. Oh my goodness. Tom Felton is in Vancouver. Okay. Everybody keeps saying they confirm there won't be a romance between them, but I might not believe that. Well, I'm typing. I might not believe that. Just because they say it's not going to happen, I don't know. I don't know about all that. All right. Okay, let's move on to question 4. Ralph Dibney. Yeah, whatever. Ralph just reminds me of how crowded this show is still. Still, do you think that Ralph could carry his own spin-off show? Okay. Now, the reason I say that is because I think that's one of the basic problems that The Flash has now, is that it is overcrowded. Then I bring that up later in a later question, but I just want to throw it out. I think it's overcrowded. Okay? They have too many principal actors, and actors want screen time, as they should. That's their job. But when you have that big of a team, unless you're dealing with a show like Firefly is written for the show to be about Malcolm and the crew. This show is named The Flash, and there are so many other characters that seem like, need screen time now until, Barry has, sometimes he feels like he's a guest star, and that was especially true last year. He feels like he's a guest star on his own show. Doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, so Comics Disciple says, that Dibney could carry his own show. My question to him is, would you watch it? Yeah, that's the thing. Even if they gave him a show, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody will watch it. Right. Fabiola brought up another point. Right. We have to give Camilla screen time too now. We have to give Camilla screen time now too. And she knows Team Flash's secrets. So what happens if she and Cisco break up? Okay. Now that could be a good storyline, but still, they just kind of really welcomed her in, and Cisco brought her all the way in, and you know, that's putting everybody on Team Flash at risk. Now that Camilla knows everything, it's not just Cisco's life; it's everybody's life that's now, you know, whatever Camilla is doing with her photography or her journalism, whatever she's doing, she's got Team Flash's secrets with her. Okay? That makes a difference. Okay. Are we getting okay now? I'm gonna tell you what Ashley said. Ashley said, as much as I love Ralph, I don't know if I'd watch a whole show for just him. He's interesting, but we have yet to see what he's completely made of to warrant a spinoff. Maybe it'll be different once Sue is in the picture, but yes, still crowded. Sue Dibney is Ralph's wife. Now, in the comics, they were one of the longest running and best couples in comics because she loved him and he loved her back, and they were just into each other. And she even said she knew that most girls might prefer Superman or Batman or the Flash, but whenever those guys were around, her eyes were still for Ralph. And I mean, they drew the panels like that where Sue would be just kind of gazing, lovingly into his eyes, even with the heavy hitters around, because she really felt like that was her lobster, that was her man. Now, spoiler alert, if you haven't read Identity Crisis, you need to read Identity Crisis. Although it's very ugly and nothing about it is going to make you happy. It's a very dark, intensely heavy story. So I don't think I'll spoil it for you right now, even though it's been out for years. But I'll talk about that some more later. But you need to read Identity Crisis. But you're not going to like anything that you read because it's worse than Killing Joke in terms of brutality. Okay. Would you be mad if I said resounding no? Okay, that's you can't reply to a deleted tweet asking Snapple to Apple, asking me would I be mad if he said a resounding no to Ralph having his own show. And I'm saying absolutely not. I agree with you. Because I do not think Ralph could carry his own show. Okay? I think he needs to be much more of a B character, a side character. We could take him maybe in small doses, but I still feel like he dominates too much of the time on Flash's show because it's not Flash and Friends. I mean, it is practically, but that wasn't the show we were sold, you know? Okay, now that might be fun. Okay, Joseph says, I would rather a Tales of the DCU style show Ralph travels with rich, eccentric Sue, facing different metahumans, appearing and meeting new heroes, stopping the strange, narrating stories and solving an overarching mystery. My take would be the end season showing the H dial. That's Dial H for Hero. Dial H for Hero was a comic where there was basically a magic rotary dial, and you spun the dial, and wherever it stopped, it gave you superpowers to whoever was using it. So there's never any telling what powers the user was going to get. And so each week there was a different adventure based on a different person, based on wherever the dial stopped that week. Very, very good concept. I really like it. Dial H for Hero. Now that needs to be a TV show. That would be so much fun to watch. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, Bionic Appendix says, nope, I do not. He doesn't think that Ralph could carry his own show. What I would like to see, however, is a Cisco show, a new alternate Earth every season, a few episodes, depending on how epic the problem there is. That I would be interested in. That is an incredible idea. Is an incredible idea, except they need to have done that with Gypsy. If they give Cisco a show where he's actually Vibe again and he's world hopping, and they don't bring Gypsy back, I ain't watching that show no way. Because that's another couple that I felt like really, really worked, and they worked hard to make the relationship work, and they clearly loved each other. But for some reason, they had to break up because I guess neither one of them was willing to sacrifice or compromise or whatever. But if Cisco becomes more of what Gypsy does in terms of the world hopping, there's no reason they can't be together because they're both doing the same thing. So if they make him do that, Gypsy needs to come back as far as I'm concerned. Hey there everyone, David Taylor 2 here. I am so excited about the launch of the Nephilim Wars. This comic is a part of my War in Heaven series, which includes novels, coloring books, and an RPG. Nephilim are half-human, half-angel hybrids, where their dads are from heaven, but their moms are from Earth. My comic, The Nephilim Wars, is set at the end of the 30th century, and the Nephilim are breeding again, and not just humans. Yikes! Okay. All right, question 5 are the only two entities in the Arrowverse that know about dark matter, Star Labs and Argus. Because I can't figure out why the government in every DC version of Thunderbolt Ross isn't making super soldiers with it yet. Okay, the bad guys have the bright idea of taking dark matter and, using it to create enhanced individuals. Seems like to me that would be happening a lot more often if the knowledge of dark matter is common. Okay, Fabiola says, I've been trying to give that question a proper answer since forever, but they never addressed this. So true. Dark matter on the Flash is like kryptonite on Smallville. It was everywhere. Okay, it's everywhere. Okay, when Clark on Smallville crashed his baby ship into Smallville in the meteor shower, in that meteor shower was literally had to be 50 metric tons of kryptonite because Smallville was lousy with kryptonite. I mean, it was literally everywhere. And so that's the feeling I'm starting to get with this dark matter thing, that everywhere in Central City, there's some type of dark matter or somebody, if the villains are harnessing it and creating it and gathering it and using it to create metahuman powers, then the government would have been on top of that a long time ago. So. Michael T. Ford III says, nah, it's pretty common knowledge, but I believe that Star Labs is the only entity with the means to detect it. Okay. My response to that is Argus wouldn't have those same means. Okay. Wouldn't Argus be able to detect dark matter? Wouldn't they be able to detect it? Because it's all over Central City, obviously. So why wouldn't they be able to detect it? Okay. We're going to bounce on to question 6. Do you see the stark contrast between how Barry and Iris are dealing with Nora being gone? To what do you attribute that difference? All right. Fabiolo says, the first episode focused more on Iris's point of view, but Barry seemed to know the importance of losing his daughter. As for your question, they are a different type. They see things differently and not just for this situation. This never gets addressed in the show, though. My response to that is, that's because they have to admit then that Barry and Iris are not soulmates, because they're not. They never have been. Okay? Iris belongs with Eddie. She was never as happy with Barry as she was with Eddie. Go back and watch that first season again. And watch when Eddie dies and watch the way she's, broken up. She was never that happy with Barry. Okay? And they kind of wrote it to where she kind of gave into the relationship because it looked like it might be their fate. But that's not the same as desiring someone the way she desired Eddie, because she did. And it's always very, very clear from her behavior. Okay? Okay? Ashley says, question number 6, people grieve differently and that's okay, but this also further shows that they are not on the same page often, which causes clashes, mostly because they don't communicate, much like the fights that happened during the end of last season, and yeah, not good. Okay, I couldn't agree more. Okay? One of the most consistent things, I'm typing as I write, about Barry and Iris is their incredibly poor communication. They do not communicate well, and what's our biggest recent example? And that is that how they reacted to finding out that Nora was working with Eobard Thawne. Now, if you understand Barry, and you've known Barry as long as Iris has, and you understand what Thawne did to Barry's mother, and then Barry finding out he had to let her stay dead because him trying to fix that through time travel was messing up, was causing the splinters and the cracks in the timeline, and he had to let her go. He had to watch her die twice. And Eobard Thawne was responsible for that. And all of a sudden he finds out his daughter is working with that guy. And Barry was understandably livid, and Iris was just like, oh, see, no, I'm not going back through all that again. But that to me was the definitive moment, in case there was any doubt that they don't belong together, that she does not get him. She does not get him in the slightest. How can you say you're in love with and you know someone where the most important thing in their life, the driving force of the last however many years of their life since Nora died, Barry's mom, Nora, the driving force of his life, and especially when he got his powers, was to find his mother's killer. And he did. And then he finds out Nora is working with that snake in the garden. And Iris is like, she doesn't even think it's that big of a deal. Yeah, see, no. Okay, Chris Colfer fan says he does understand the difference, maybe Barry because of guilt, and maybe Iris because she was just getting close to Nora. Not sure, though. All that's possible. All that's possible because Barry definitely reveals his deep guilt over losing her later in the episode, because he does. Barry kind of snaps, and it becomes very, very obvious that he's still very much hurting. But I mean, if your daughter disintegrated in your arms, and like Iris says, you're never going to see that version of her again. Even if you have her again, she won't be her. Like Iris said, she won't be our Nora. Our Nora, that's very significant. So, maybe Barry kind of stuffs his feelings a little bit more, or maybe Barry kind of he thinks he can fix it, by saving people. That seems to be like his thing. Like, I can fix it maybe if I do some more heroics. And Iris is a little bit more willing to just be honest about how she feels in the moment. So maybe that attributes to their differences. I wasn't trying to imply that their differences were bad, by the way. I was trying to say that their differences were pronounced, because they are. And I was definitely trying to say that I do not think they fit together. Okay? Question number 7. Chester reminds me of Darwin from First Class. Oh my goodness, say it with me. Darwin deserved better. Except black holes don't work that way. There's no way anything would survive their presence. Do you like your science real or comic booky? Okay, that's question number 7. Fabiola says, it's a wormhole. They referenced it wrong. Polly says, this as a whole in both. I don't like how they look, but there's a theory out there that says there's billions of them all around us, opening and closing dispersing energy through dimensions, including our mental thought. Okay? So that's a mix of comic book science and real world science. Very interesting. I'm just talking about the sheer power of a black hole and how it works and how it would destroy all the life that it's around and how everything would be drawn into it. And that's not what happened. It was kind of a selective black hole, you know, just having selective power. And so, I don't know. Okay, trying to keep up my questions here, but they're popping off kind of fast. Okay. Question number 8. I don't understand this push by Ralph for Killer Frost to live. I'm hoping this leads to a storyline where Kate and Killer Frost are split. I said that before. Maybe not permanently, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly how Killer Frost could have a life. Okay? Polly says, I didn't understand this either. Okay, so she wants to come out and have more time not being KO'd. I get that part. I do hope this causes a temporary split or something. There has to be more to it. That's right. Because the question becomes, what happens to Caitlin? You know, does Caitlin have, less airtime now, less screen time, less time in the driver's seat of her own body? Is that right? Caitlin have less driver's seat time in her own body? I personally liked it better when Killer Frost was evil. I know a lot of people don't like season 3, and there were a lot of bad things in season 3. But Killer Frost going bad was not one of them. That was probably the best thing in season 3 with Savitar was dark Killer Frost or Killer Frost still evil. Okay? Because there's nothing that creates more tension than when somebody in the group goes bad. Now, if they were like a Judas and they sell you out, that's one thing. Or they were like a snake in the garden, which is also another form of a Judas, like Eobarthon posing as Dr. Wells. Okay. But when there's someone that you love and then, another entity takes them over or the personality flips or something happens. And the cool thing about evil Killer Frost was that she always told the truth. And she told the truth with a lot of anger. Where Caitlin would try to be sweet and maybe encouraging and supportive, Killer Frost would cut straight to the chase. Like the time she called Barry out for changing timeline when he got what he wanted. He wouldn't bring Dante back for Cisco, and he wouldn't bring Ronnie back, or Caitlin wasn't with Ronnie. So Killer Frost was like, of course you're happy, Barry. You got Iris. You got what you wanted. Then you stopped fooling with time, which I thought was an excellent point, and I missed that. I miss the sharp tongue, the truth telling of Killer Frost. I miss it big time, okay? Because I think it's one of the best parts of her character, and I still say that's one of the best things that came out of season 3. Okay, Ashley says, I'm also suspicious of the screen time, though. I feel like they may want to split the two eventually, or Frost will disappear for real this time. And my response to that is, that's the last thing I want, getting rid of Killer Frost. What I actually want is a return to her being evil. Or I better put evil in quotes, evil. Because at least then she told the uncut truth. Okay. And again, I thought those were some of the best scenes in season 3, maybe even some of the best scenes on the whole show. Killer Frost calling people out on their stuff, not letting people get away with all that phony stuff they were trying to peddle, but calling things like they really were. I just absolutely love that. Okay, it's 1:40. So I'm going to jump on to question 9. Are we digging Killer Frost's new costume? Okay. And Will Polk, my friend Will, what's up, Will? Will says it is awesome. Okay, and I'm going to give that a thumbs up because I agree. Okay, so Will says it's awesome. Fabiola says they loved it. Ashley says yes, finally. It really is a good outfit, though. Critical Blast says, I would have preferred something more diaphanous and icy blue. Now that's interesting. Why? Okay. Chris Colfer fan likes it. Chris Stevens says he doesn't think it would survive the wash. If it can survive her powers, I think it can make it through the laundry. Now that's one of the things for those of you that don't, aren't aware of that. There's a thing in comicdom called secondary powers. Secondary powers are the things that have to be in place to make the primary powers work. For example, if you have ice powers, how are you generating the water? Where's the mass coming from of the things that you're freezing? Or are you freezing the air around you? Okay. And if you're like an ice creature, like Iceman, or, like, do you generate the ice or are you made of ice? Because if that's the case, what are your lungs made of and how are you breathing? But also, there's a condensation factor. And then what's the difference between what you're doing and the air around you? And then can you create absolute zero? And then, what happens to your ice statues? And again, but most of it has to do with generating that water and freezing it. How are you generating that mass? Where's that energy coming from? So that's kind of the stuff we kind of skip over to make the powers work. Those are called secondary powers. Okay. So maybe one day I'm going to do a video on that whole thing because that whole subject is fascinating beyond belief. Absolutely fascinating. Okay. Question 10 already popped up. Now, wait. Question 10. Hold on just a Speed Force minute. Did they really just play the theme music to Flash Gordon while Barry was running? Now, I saw that. I said, wait a minute. I was like, wait, time out. Really? Seriously? Really? Really? They played the theme music to Flash Gordon. I couldn't believe it because one of the reasons I couldn't believe it is because I'm just wondering about the licensing fees they had to pay. But, I don't know if Warner Brothers distributed that. I don't remember. So maybe it's a part of their catalog, which is why they got it. But if not, holy cow, what did that cost? Number one. But number two, it's kind of like mixing mythologies. Cisco said he's been waiting to play that for a while since, since season one or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a musician. Maybe it's because I'm a songwriter and producer. Because what I was thinking was, why don't we just give Barry his own music? I agree with the idea of Barry having something cool to do his heroic stuff to, but we don't have to gank somebody else's theme music to make Barry look cool or whatever. So I mean, on one side, it was cool, I guess, from a fan point of view, but Polly says she would have personally gone with something by Queen, but that was Queen, Flash Gordon. I don't know what they're doing, but at least the music is right, Fabiello says. Bionic Appendix says, wait a minute, are you watching The Flash now? I don't get it for hours and hours and hours yet. Okay. The answer to that question is I wrote my questions as I watched it. So it has a live tweet feel, which is exactly what I did when I was watching this episode last week. I was writing down my Flash chat questions. So that's why when you read the tweet questions, that's why it feels like I'm watching it in real time. Because I actually wrote down, because I like that better. I like putting my honest reaction out there when I first see it, like everybody else, because I think that first reaction is more genuine. Because sometimes, when you think about it too much, you can overthink it. I know me overthink stuff. Who thought that could happen? Okay. Critical Blast said yes, and it's about darn time. Yes, it was a highlight show for me. I played the scene 3 times. Okay, and who said that? Scott A. Williams said that, museum guy Scott. And I will have to say yes, I have to admit, I played it more than once too. Why? Because they finally had Barry looking, feeling, and sounding heroic. I need to write that down. Why? Because they finally had Barry looking, feeling, and sounding heroic. Most of the episodes, if you think about it, Barry spends his time beating up on himself or angsting with guilt for some of his mistakes. So even though he's a grown man, he reacts very much like a teenage Clark Kent from Smallville, because that's pretty much how he spends his mental time. So for once, to see him really get out there and do something that only the Flash could do and do it with confidence and make the complete difference, I thought was absolutely incredible. You did not know that till now. You didn't know that was Flash Gordon theme music. And that's the other thing, okay? I've been in the game for a while. I've been reading since I was 4, and I've been reading comic books since I was 4, and that was a long time ago. Okay, it's been a long time since I was 4. I'm now seeing there's the generational gap. I'm seeing it in terms of people's jumping on point, because there's a lot of stuff that people don't know is from prior incarnations. Now, I know that happens with every generation. I'm just noticing it more and more, like somebody telling me that they didn't know that Flash music was from Flash Gordon, which was an 80s movie that wasn't, unique or original or written for the Flash TV show. That comes from Flash Gordon, which was it's like a cult classic. It may not have done well when it was first out, but that movie has such a following because it's a serious cult classic. It's so good. It's so cool. Has so many unique elements, and it's great. So you need to check it out. Uh, Nose is itching. Okay. So, all right, hold on. Let me look at that, and then I got to move on to the next question because this hour always flies. Not just running. Charles Lee, Goofy Fan Chuck says, not just running, the Flash was running into a black hole. That was rather fitting music. And I'm going to say that is absolutely correct. Very fitting. But Barry should still have his own. He should still have his own music. Yeah. I firmly believe that. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Question 11. Okay, I do have to give this to them. They at least made Barry the hero that saved the day, even though everybody else pitched in. I have to admit, seeing him be the hero was a welcome relief. Also, the chin strap. I love the chin strap being back. Agree or no? I really love that chin strap. I think that's the best look for Barry in that costume, because last year that costume looked like underoos. Just that pure spandex without any of the firefighter formula, latex formula, like the first season. Just that pure spandex that looked like drawers. Okay, look like underwear. Look like you get up on Saturday morning, you're watching cartoons, and you put that on to sit in front of the TV and eat some pancakes and some popcorn. Yeah, no, that's not how the Flash should look. So I love that chin strap being back. That's right. I love the chin strap. I'm answering Ashley. Ashley says, yes and yes. Glad Barry could save the day, and the chin strap definitely gave the suit the right touch they were missing last season. Couldn't agree more. Because last season's costume looked like underoos, drawers, underwear. Because it did. Okay? Everyone supported him with actual things that they know. That's right. Ooh, Lord, it's 150. Okay? So let me find some more answers to question 11. Okay? Polly said, agreed. He was back where he needed to be, the show front. Everyone supported him with actual things that they know. Okay? Absolutely correct. It was Team Flash, but Barry was at the center for a change and doing things that only the Flash could do. See, we need more stuff like that. We need more situations where we see the speedster stuff and the speed power stuff being the solutions or being at the center, stuff that only Barry can do. That's what makes him the hero of his own show. That shouldn't be an occasional occurrence. It should be a regular occurrence. That shouldn't be occasional. That should happen on the regular. Okay, answering Polly. All right. Okay, let's jump to question 12. Do you believe what the monitor said? Do you believe that the Flash must die? And as we all know, Crisis on Infinite Earths is coming up. Once again, that's from the comic book. If you don't know anything about the comic book, then that title doesn't have a lot of meaning to you. In the comic book, it was the anti-monitor and the monitors, and he was destroying reality, and nobody could stop him. And long story short, it was a multi-issue thing, and then it culminated in just this huge book. And long story short, in that book, Supergirl died, and Barry Allen, the Flash, died. That's when he died, and then Wally took over, and Wally West was the Flash for a long time. That's when all that happened. And so it's got that famous cover of Superman holding Supergirl's dead body, and Superman is crying his eyes out. That's where that picture comes from. That's from Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's why I always recommend that you read the comics, okay? Because it makes a huge difference, okay? So, do you believe that the Flash must die? Sean Campbell says depends. Are they renewed for another season yet? What question was that? 12. They've got plenty of Flashes that could take over. Okay, and they do, and I don't like that. They've got plenty of Flashes that could step in, and I don't like the fact that they do. But also throwing that out there, I really wish we could see some more of Jessie Quick. I really miss her. My character. Okay, Mauricio. Mauricio's one of the council on Twitter. Love Mauricio. He's answering question number 10. In any other series, that would have made a lot of noise, but this is the series where they're a character who's always making pop references. My only problem with the scene is the execution. The pose of Barry is weird. That's actually kind of true. That's actually kind of true. His pose was really awkward. They had Grant standing funny. Standing funny in that shot because it really did. Because he really looked just kind of off center and off balance and all that. And it was just kind of, but the music was so epic, we kind of were willing to overlook that. Okay, now, here's Ashley's answer to that question. Does she believe that Flash has to die? Question number 12. She says, I believe that a Flash will have to die, but not necessarily our Flash. So maybe Flash from Earth 90 will die, though it was very convenient that they introduced another Barry Allen who was the Flash right before all of this happened. Okay. Could not possibly agree more. Will probably be John Wesley Ship Flash or Earth 90. Plus, I want to see Diggle as John Stewart. Because last year, Earth 90 Flash, John Wesley Ship Flash, the Flash from the 90s, showed up and said, hey, John, where's your ring? So they gave us, the heaviest, handedest slap that they could to say that on Earth 90, Diggle is not Oliver's partner. Diggle is Green Lantern. He's John Stewart. And we've been theorizing, when I say we, I mean all the geeks that watch The Flash, we've been theorizing that for a very long time. Okay? All right. Polly, to answer question 12, Polly says, he never once said which one. And no, I don't believe that things are always going to happen. They might until we make a decision which changes everything in our future. I watch Fringe too much, but that's an excellent example. Yeah, I don't believe in the future is set kind of thing. I believe it's known, but that's different. Because, well, not to take the conversation too metaphysical, but I believe that we both have free will and God knows our choices. So that means even though we have the freedom to make the choice, since God already knows what we're going to choose, then all kinds of things are set up based on God already knowing what we're going to do. But, I'm not going to argue theology, but that's always a big point with people in how can you believe in free will and predestination and blah, 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 blah. That's a big deal that people like to argue about because they're trying to figure it out. And there are things in life that exist that you can't figure out. And I think that's one of them. But I do believe it's possible to absolutely have free choice as to what you're going to do and for God to already know what those choices are going to be and set things up based on what he knows you're going to choose, even though you freely chose it. So don't try to figure that out because you can't fit that in the human brain. There's more going on there. Okay. Okay, Mauricio says, answer number 10 about the Barry Flash music scene. I hope not to remove old wounds, but this reminded me of my problem with Leia, with the Leia scene in space in The Last Jedi. The idea is not bad, but the execution of the physical pose of the protagonist is strange. Well, we all know Mary Poppins, no matter what you think about The Last Jedi or that scene, everybody started calling Leia Mary Poppins, right after that. Okay? All right, now Johnny Torch answering question number 12. Do you believe what the monitor said? Do you believe that the Flash must die? They kind of tipped their hand already, though. I mean, though they made clear the deal where Ollie was signing up for some kind of indentured servitude to the monitor to save Barry and Kara. And I think that is exactly right. Now, I've said it on Twitter, but I'll say it again here. I think Oliver's going to live. I don't think Oliver's going to die. And I think going to have to fight evil forever somewhere away from his family. I think that Oliver is going to live, and I think that he's going to be trapped in some type of dimension where he's going to be fighting eternally. But he'll be able to physically see his family, but he'll never be able to go back to Earth and be with them again, because that's what will cause him the most pain, because they hate Oliver Queen on his show. Write it down, make no mistakes. I didn't stutter. They hate Oliver Queen. I have never seen, maybe Clark on Smallville, but I have never seen a show that hates his protagonist the way Arrow hates Oliver. It's unbelievable. So they're not going to give him a happy ending, and they're not going to give him a clean exit. They're going to put him somewhere where he's in pain for all of eternity, struggling and fighting, never being able to win, and never being able to get out of the fight, and never being able to see Felicity or his kids or Laurel or anybody again. That's what's going to happen to Oliver Queen. You write that down, because that's the Max Payne ending, and not Max Payne the character, maximum pain ending, and that's what they want to do for him. Okay? All right. Oh, man, 159, so we're just about done. Okay. All right. Okay, Kyle says, LAYD 2814, yes, a Flash must die, but it won't be Barry. It'll probably be Jay Garrick or Earth 90 Barry Allen. I think the cliffhanger for Crisis will probably be Barry seemingly vanishing, but we find out he's alive after the hiatus during the final 2 episodes of Crisis. And I'm going to say to that, I think you spelled out the whole season. Because that's exactly what I think is going to happen. Okay, it's going to be a cliffhanger over the break, and then it's going to look like Barry died, and we're going to find out that he didn't. Then we're going to find out that Jake Garrick or Earth 90 Barry Allen died, and then, and Grant Barry, our Barry, is going to come back. All right, y'all, it's 2 o'clock. That's it. Thank you so much for joining me for this live edition of Flash Chat. I really like doing this. Let me know if you want me to do this on a regular. I think I am because I'm going to podcast some stuff and let people hear the chat and put it on my website and everything. So those of you that watched me live, thank you so much. Those of you that were joining me on Twitter, thank you so much there. And the Flash is on new tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And I will be on next Tuesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for the next episode of Flash Chat. If you're listening to me on the podcast, if you want to join live, find me on Twitter at DT2 Comics Chat and just look up the hashtag Flash Chat. You can find my website at dt2comicschat.org. And then you can find me on my Twitter account, and you can also find me on Facebook, DT2 Comics Chat. Okay? All right, thank you very much. We'll see you next time.